Hello, I'm Jashikins, and welcome to another episode of Jash Reads. This time I will be beginning my dramatic reading of Mockingjay by Susan Collins. Sorry, I just wish I wasn't recording tonight. I'd just be watching Star Wars stuff on YouTube. Anyways, Part 1, The Ashes. Chapter 1. I stare down at my shoes, watching as a fine layer of ash settles on the worn leather. This is where the bed I shared with my sister Prim stood. Over there was the kitchen table. The bricks of the chimney, which collapsed in a charred heap, provide a point of reference for the rest of the house. How else could I orient myself in this sea of gray? Almost nothing remains of District 12. A month ago, the capital's firebombs obliterated the poor coal miners' houses in the seam, the shops in the town, even the Justice Building. The only area that escaped incineration was the Victor's Village. I don't know why exactly. Perhaps so anyone forced to come here on capital business would have somewhere decent to stay. The odd reporter, a committee assessing the condition of the coal mines, a squad of peacekeepers checking for returning refugees. But no one is returning, except me. And that's only for a brief visit. The authorities in District 13 were against my coming back. They viewed it as a costly and pointless venture, given that at least a dozen invisible hovercraft are circling overhead for my protection, and there's no intelligence to be gained. I had to see it, though. So much so that I made it a condition of my cooperating with any of their plans. Finally, Plutarch Heavensby, the head gamekeeper who had organized the rebels in the capital, threw up his hands. Let her go. Better to waste a day than another month. Maybe a little tour of 12 is just what she needs to convince her we're on the same side. The same side. Pain stabs my left temple, and I press my hand against it, right on the spot where Johanna Mason hit me with the coil of wire. The memories swirl as I try to sort out what is true and what is false. What series of events led me to be standing in the ruins of my city? This is hard because the effects of the concussion she gave me haven't completely subsided, and my thoughts still have a tendency to jumble together. Also, the drugs they used to control my pain and moods sometimes make me see things. I guess. I'm still not entirely convinced that I was hallucinating the night the floor of my hospital room transformed into a carpet of writhing snakes. I use a technique one of the doctors suggested. I start with the simplest things I know to be true and work toward the more complicated. The list begins to roll in my head. My name is Katniss Everdeen. I am 17 years old. My home is District 12. I was in the Hunger Games. I escaped. The Capitol hates me. Peter was taken prisoner. He is thought to be dead. Most likely he is dead. It is probably best if he is dead. Katniss, should I come down? My best friend Gail's voice reaches me through the headset the rebels insisted I wear. He's up in a hovercraft, watching me carefully, ready to swoop in if anything goes amiss. I realize I'm crouched down now, elbows on my thighs, my head braced between my hands. I must look on the verge of some kind of breakdown. This won't do, not when they're finally weaning me off the medication. I straighten up and wave his offer away. No, I'm fine. To reinforce this, I begin to move away from my old house and in toward the town. Gale asked to be dropped off in 12 with me, but he didn't force the issue when I refused his company. He understands I don't want anyone with me today. Not even him. Some walks you have to take alone. The summer's been scorching hot and dry as a bone. There has been next to no rain to disturb the piles of ash left by the attack. They shift here and there in reaction to my footsteps. No breeze to scare them. I keep my eyes on what I remember as the road, because when I first landed in the meadow, I wasn't careful and I walked right into a rock. Only it wasn't a rock. It was someone's skull. It rolled over and over and landed face up, and for a long time I couldn't stop looking at the teeth, wondering whose they were, thinking of how mine would probably look the same way under similar circumstances. I stick to the road out of habit. But it's a bad choice, because it's full of the remains of those who tried to flee. Some were incinerated entirely, but others, probably overcome with smoke, escaped the worst of the flames and now lay reeking in various states of decomposition, carrion for scavengers, blanketed by flies. I killed you, I think, as I passed the pile. And you? And you? Because I did. It was my arrow, aimed at the chink in the force field surrounding the arena, that brought on this firestorm of retribution that sent the whole country of Panam into chaos. In my head, I hear President Snow's words, spoken the morning I was to begin the victory tour. Katniss Everdeen, the girl who was on fire, you have provided a spark that, left unintended, may grow to an inferno that destroys Panam. It turns out he wasn't exaggerating or simply trying to scare me. He was perhaps genuinely attempting to enlist my help. But I had already set something in motion that I had no ability to control. Burning. Still burning. I think numbly. The fires at the coal mines belch black smoke in the distance. There's no one left to care, though. More than 90% of the district's population is dead. The remaining 800 or so are refugees in District 13, which, as far as I'm concerned, is the same thing as being homeless forever. I know I shouldn't think that. I know I should be grateful for the way we have been welcomed. Sick, wounded, starving, and empty-handed. Still, I can never get around the fact that District 13 was instrumental in 12's destruction. This doesn't absolve me of blame. There's plenty of blame to go round. But without them, I would not have been part of a larger plot to overthrow the capital or had the wherewithal to do it. The citizens of District 12 had no organized resistance movement of their own. No say in any of this. They only had the misfortune to have me. Some survivors think it's good luck, though, to be free of District 12 at last. To have escaped the endless hunger and oppression, the perilous mines, the lash of our final head peacekeeper, Romulus Thread, to have a new home at all is seen as a wonder, since up until a short time ago, we hadn't even known that District 13 still existed. The credit for the survivors' escape has landed squarely on Gale's shoulders, although he's loath to accept it. As soon as the quarter quell was over, as soon as I had been lifted from the arena, the electricity in District 12 was cut, the televisions went black, and the scene became so silent. People could hear one another's heartbeats. No one did anything to protest or celebrate what had happened in the arena, yet within 15 minutes, the sky was filled with hover planes and the bombs were raining down. It was Gale who thought the meadow one of the few places not filled with old wooden homes embedded with coal dust. He herded those he could in its direction, including my mother and Prim. He formed the team that pulled down the fence, now just a harmless chain-link barrier with the electricity off, and led the people into the woods. He took them to the only place he could think of, the lake my father had shown me as a child. And it was from there they watched the distant flames eat up everything they knew in the world. By dawn, the bombers were long gone, the fires dying, the final stragglers rounded up. My mother and Prim had set up a medical area for the injured and were attempting to treat them with whatever they could glean from the woods. Gale had 2 sets of bows and arrows, 1 hunting knife, 1 fishing net, and over 800 terrified people to feed. With the help of those who were able-bodied, they managed for 3 days. And that's when the hovercraft unexpectedly arrived to evacuate them to District 13, where there were more than enough clean, white living compartments, plenty of clothing, and 3 meals a day. The compartments had the disadvantage of being underground, the clothing was identical, and the food was relatively tasteless. But for the refugees of 12, these were minor considerations. They were safe. They were being cared for. They were alive and eagerly welcomed. This enthusiasm was interpreted as kindness. But a man named Dalton, a District 10 refugee who made it to 13 on foot a few years ago, leaked the real motive to me. They need you, me, they need us all. A while back, there was some sort of pox epidemic that killed a bunch of them and left a lot more infertile. New breeding stock. That's how they see us. Back in 10, he'd worked on one of the beef ranches, maintaining the genetic diversity of the herd with the implantation of long-frozen cow embryos. He's very likely right about 13, because there don't seem to be nearly enough kids around. But so what? We're not being kept in pens. We're being trained for work. The children are being educated. Those over 14 have been given entry-level ranks in the military and are addressed respectfully as soldier. Every single refugee was granted automatic citizenship by the authorities of 13. Still, I hate them. But of course, I hate almost everybody now. Myself more than anyone. Cut. And yeah, I know I'm not done reading the first chapter, but it was... With Animorphs, I could sort of get away with it, just reading one chapter a day and getting 2 chapters out a week, because they were, pretty short. But yeah, holy shit. And yeah, this book begins with all kinds of joy. Part 2 is going to be coming out in November, but seeing part 1, I think, yeah, this isn't how the movie begins, but it's I've read the book before the movie, and just, it starts out so happy, I stepped on a skull, and I got freaked the fuck out, because, oh my god, it's not a rock. It's just, I'm going to really have to, as this dramatic reading goes on, learn to sort of balance, the sadness and the wit. Because, I can practice, but, going through the whole book, of course, I'll learn, I'll become more confident in certain things. But yeah. So, if you want to talk about this book, please comment below and we can start a conversation, but just try not to spoil anything near the end of the book. I mean, minor spoilers, okay, but major ones, no. If someone's, learning about the Hunger Game, Mockingjay with this dramatic reading, I don't want to be the one who spoils them. I don't want to be that damn bastard. And then, as always, this is the time where we take a shot. If you drink alcohol, grab your beverage of choice. I'm, of course, doing sake. This bottle of sake has been waiting patiently since the last chapter of Animorphs #1, The Invasion. So it's happy to be in business again. And if you don't drink alcohol for whatever reason, say you're underage, you're a recovering alcoholic, you just don't like alcohol, drink some water. That's what I was sipping before. Milk, keep hydrated, keep healthy. I've been having a migraine a little bit, so I don't want to pour my usual amount. Yeah, so, and I will be getting another video out Wednesday and another one out Thursday, but, and then of course with the Thursday one, there will be bloopers. And next week there's not going to be a dramatic reading because I'm going to be out of town during the weekend, so I won't be able to practice. And here's to a successful dramatic reading. Good as always. Whenever I eat sushi, I cannot, eat it without sake. It just doesn't feel real. So, finally, if you have not read the book or don't have a copy and you want to both get the book and support me, and if you're wondering, oh, I could just listen to your dramatic reading, just remember this dramatic reading is an interpretation. Yes, I'm reading the text on the page, but what I emphasize, when I take pauses and shit, it can change the effect. So, if you do want to get the book, and support me. If you're watching this on the YouTubes, link will be in the description. And if you're watching this on my blog, jashikins.blogspot.com, at the very bottom of this post will be an ad. So yeah. May the odds be ever in your favor.